So what I want to do now is just quickly check and see how I kind of upgraded Rip and Aris. I think I kept their drives pretty equal across the board. You know, I tried to make them not neglect any of their drives. So let's take a look. Yeah, so level 24, 24 and 28. So commentary is a bit stronger. It's got a lot of drive points as well that I could possibly spend on upgrading some stuff. And Rip's chambers are actually I did pretty well in the main playthrough. I kept them all pretty even, which is, it's actually harder than you would think. Although your chambers do level up very quickly, quite often you'll have a favourite one, and it's very often IT guy because it's pretty fun. So it's quite hard to keep them all on a equal footing, you know, and not make one much more powerful than the others. But I did pretty well. So let's take a look at Aris. Right, okay, with Aris I definitely did not use Troll as much. Although Troll does have a lot of drive points left, but it's a much lower level than the other two. And his chambers, Begonia is a little bit behind. Pickpocket is actually a lot behind as well, which is kind of surprising because Pickpocket is so useful. All the stealing, it's really, really useful. So we should probably give Pickpocket a bit of time in the spotlight, and also Troll would be good. Start. I mean, this is the kind of playstyle that I like to do. I like to keep when there are options for how a character progresses, I like to keep them all fairly consistent. I don't like to neglect anything, so I like to keep everyone's options open, because I think it helps you in boss battles to just have a lot of different, you know, if you find that your strategy isn't working, then you're free to adapt and switch to another drive and mix things up. Whereas if you just focus on one drive, then you could find yourself stuck. But obviously it's a lot more work to keep your drives equal. It's not as easy as just to pick your favourite one and just blaze through the game with that one. So what I want to do now is try and skip most of these monsters, because there's very little point in fighting them and leveling up without our third party member. It makes much more sense to come back at a later date and level up then. Okay, just navigating the potholes here. I'm using the Xbox wired pad to play this because it's much easier than, well, in some ways it's easier than a keyboard. For Law's chains, his combos, it's not easier because it's like the screen is saying Q and W and you have to try and remember which Xbox button is Q, and it's actually really tricky. Okay, so let's take a wander through here. The weather is terrible. Okay, good, it stopped raining. It's a mushroom village. This is my kind of town. So Aris is a fan of the mushroom village already. That might change. Dwarf is surprised. Impossible. Who are you? We're travelers, just looking for a place to rest up. You know what I mean? But you're so tall, even taller than our king. The Constitution does say, look, we're really just looking for an inn or something, then we'll be moving on. Yeah, just make sure that shit has separate beds. It's so funny because I don't have the right accent for Aris's dialogue. Like, it doesn't sound like Aris when it's coming out of my mouth. Don't think so anyway. Wait, separate rooms. Can't take any risks. I'm afraid there are some protocols I must observe first. I am required to bring you in front of our king. Right. Well then, it would be an honor to meet him. Follow me. You better behave yourself in front of this king, dude. Pfft, I'm not into all that curtsying bullshit. If this king's a Studebaker, are you into staying alive? Man, if I get beheaded because of your big mouth, how are they going to behead us? They're like 3 feet tall. Well, they could always cut off something lower. Castration City, huh? Fine. I'll leave the talking to you. I'm sure you can suck the king's dick enough for the two of us anyway. Oh, it's so funny reading Aris's dialogue. You know, with Aris, the funny thing with Aris is when I was writing his dialogue, it was really liberating. That's the funny thing about it, is because, I mean, obviously, as I said before, it's a character. It is not. It's amplified. You know, his foul mouth is amplified. You know, his kind of abrasiveness is, you know, almost a caricature of himself. But the funny thing about it is, when I was writing his dialogue, it was like you could say everything that you normally would, or at least that I wouldn't say. Like, I would never say the things that he says. Just his how upfront he is, and he doesn't really have much of a filter. Like, his brain just goes to his mouth and it just comes out. And that was what was really fun about writing his dialogue. And it was also a little bit challenging, because that's not who I am. I definitely think before I speak, and so it was interesting to write a character like Aris. So where are we? I have a matter that requires the king's attention. His Highness is still resting. Still, so whoever the king is kind of lazy. Not very productive. Oh, shock. Now do you understand? I will summon His Majesty at once. Yeah, I probably should have sped up that walking. So how do we address the king? We don't want to offend anyone. Your Majesty is fine. King Rixta isn't that strict about such matters anyway. So there we go, it's been revealed. The king is Rixta. He has become king of dwarves. Shock. Wait, did you say King Rixta? Your king didn't happen to show up recently, did he? Boing, 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 boing. I apologize, Your Majesty, for interrupting your bouncing. Have you rounded up the young maidens yet? I'm afraid there's a more pressing matter. 2 strangers have appeared. 2? Yes, and well, the issue is, forgive me, Your Majesty, but they are considerably taller than you. Well, the bearded one not so much, but the brown one is like a skyscraper. Rip and Aris. As we explained to you when you arrived, the Constitution clearly states that there's something you have to know about these 2 strangers. All hail King Rixta. Oh, that jumping sound makes me laugh. Really, Ricky? A fanfare? This dimension sucks. Rixta gets made a king. Aris is not happy. You will show respect. He is our lord and ruler. Perhaps not for much longer, but still. Yogardus, throw these 2 in our dungeons or whatever. But Your Majesty, the law states they're like servants of that hair-stealing monster you guys told me about. Look at the one in black. See how his hair is patchy and incomplete on top? The monster has been stealing your hair to give to him. Now, he's here to finish the job. Ricky, what the fuck are you jibber-jabbering about? That's another thing that I kind of noticed about Aris. I'm going to try and give you guys like all the inside hints into making this game, because I think that's quite interesting. You know, because obviously Rip has already played through this DLC portion, so in terms of story, there's not going to be anything new, but I can obviously tell you from my perspective about making the game, about what it was like. And with Aris, because the thing with dialogue is, when it's just written dialogue, you have to make sure that it's recognizable as the character who's speaking, and that's kind of difficult to do. You have to kind of hook on to a couple of either speech patterns or vocabulary choices if they use certain words quite a lot. That helps in just making their dialogue stand out from other characters' dialogue. And with Aris, I've definitely noticed that he will use sometimes quite strange words, like jibber jabber. You know, jibber jabber is not a word that everyone says. And there's a couple of other examples. I think later on he says something like, "Oh, why are you so cock-a-hoop?" Cock-a-hoop or cock-a-hoot. It was a word that I found online that means excited. And it's just kind of those strange vocabulary choices. Rather than just saying things in a very plain way, Aris will often say things in a strange way. You know, he'll word things that are odd, in an odd way. And that really helped me when I was writing his dialogue, to try and make every sentence at least have some kind of strange, either the structure of it or his vocabulary choice, make it a little bit strange. And that really helped me when I was writing his dialogue. Of course, how could we have been so stupid? Hey, quit grabbing me. I mean, with Rip was a little bit harder because he doesn't, I mean, he has a lot of catchphrases, you know, damn girl and boom and stuff, but obviously he can't be saying that like every sentence. He can't be saying like, okay, boom, let's go here, and boom, what's going on here, you know, that doesn't work. So for him, I had to just kind of pick up on the Californian kind of dude, man, those kind of words that he uses quite a lot, and how he kind of speaks very quickly and speaks in quite long sentences. He tends to like blurt out, splurge when he speaks. It's like blah 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 blah. So that's what I had to kind of focus on when I was writing his dialogue. So he was a little bit harder to make his dialogue recognizable as the Rip that we all know. So you'll pay for this, Ricky. Slam. Slam.